What does your family do when you are either not able to communicate because of health issues or end of life issues, and everything is left that you have for your family? How do they find stuff? Where do they find stuff? What do you need? What kind of stuff do you need to stack up somewhere so that trusted family members can pick up the financial household that you would leave and run with it? That's what we're going to talk about in the show today. Now, I think I have a background of about 55 years that might tell me that this is really important, because for almost 2 decades I was a minister. And one of the first people that gets called, at least back then, particularly after the doctor's called and the health people are called, is the minister. And you come into a situation and the minister starts trying to help the family put the pieces back together. How do you pay for all the costs that are going to come about? How do you divide the things that are left? Now, the minister doesn't do all of that, but sometimes the minister is the one that coaches that. So I've seen it from that angle. And I've also seen it from 30 years of financial services and working with people to make sure they never run out of income the rest of their life. But what happens when they run out of life? How do they take what they have and transfer it to the right people? What are those documents that are needed, and where do we find them? Let's talk about the documents that are needed. And I'll tell you, the rest of this is going to be just more or less a list. Number one, if you're building this war chest for your family, have a copy of your driver's license. And for whatever reason, they ask for the front and back side of your driver's license, because there's some things you have, if you can't communicate, that they're going to need to know what your driver's license number is before they can access it. Next, where's your social security card? Because many things that have to be accessed, you have to have that social security card. And because it's an end-of-life event or a health event, then they need to know where your Medicare card is. So here's what you do. Let's just start with those. Stack up a copy of your driver's license, stack up a copy of your social security card, stack up a copy of your Medicare card, and possibly, I've also seen this, it might be good if somebody knew where there was a copy of your passport. Because who's to say you're going to be right there at your house or right there in your own neighborhood? You might be across the world when something happens and somebody needs your passport. I'll tell you a little incident here that happened recently. We had somebody way on the other side of the world and they needed a copy of their passport. Guess who had one? We did. So we were able to get them their passport, and they wasn't an official passport, but we got them a copy and they were able to get it replaced. So stack these things up. You never know when somebody's going to need to have access to that. Now let's dig a little deeper. When you go in, I just recently went in for some tests, and I was coming to a testing clinic down at St. Joseph's Hospital in Orange, and they said, do you have a durable power of attorney from a medical standpoint? I said, yes, I do, because we have a trust. They said, bring a copy of it. Because when they're going to do a test, particularly if they're going to put you out for a few minutes or an hour and a half, maybe a little minor surgery, that you never know what's going to happen. So they need that durable power of attorney, so they knew who to turn to when decisions might have to be made if something doesn't go the right way. Now let's talk about financial. And this is really if something happens to you and you're not going to be here any longer, but maybe you need some copies of your bank statements, at least the first page, maybe some copies of any kind of investment accounts that you have. Maybe it's a qualified account or a non-qualified account, or IRA. If you're still working, maybe a copy of a 401k statement, maybe a Roth IRA statement. All of those things, you don't have to have all the pages, but that front page is going to tell the name of it, and it could be different names. Like I use 2 different names sometimes. Some of my stuff is Felton Thomas Mosley, and some of my stuff is Tom Mosley. So you've got to have all of that, but just the front page, have all of those bank accounts, investment accounts, all of those things stacked up, because you would be gone or you would not be able to access those, and somebody needs to be able to find them. Next, a copy of your will or your trust, and at least let your family know where to find it. And you don't have to have the whole trust there. You can have that in a secure place, but maybe the front page and just a little note on it is where the whole trust can be found or the will can be found. Because if you're gone, those things are important that our people are able to tap in. And now down the road, they're also going to need to know where the deeds are to property. It's going to be recorded in the trust, but you're going to have the actual deed at some point, or know where that deed is. If there's a mortgage against a property, you probably still want to have that mortgage there. I'm not trying to be morbid in anything I'm doing. I'm just trying to help you and trying to help your family. Because if you've ever been in a situation where you needed these things and you didn't know where they were, or you couldn't find them because mom and dad didn't tell you, you know how important this is. And there's one more thing I want to mention on here. Everybody, it seems like anymore, almost everybody has a computer password. And almost everybody has a cell phone. Even if it's a flip phone, you've got a cell phone, and there's a password to get into the phone and a password to get into the computer. So somewhere in your documents, I have found clients who found it very advantageous to them, who are trying to put a wrap on all of these things in your life. They're able to get into your computer and they're able to get into your phone password. Now, let me tell you a story that my dad one time, when I was buying a house when I was very young, and they came to me and they said, you know, we could get you a little bit lower rate if you could have a family member where we had a bank statement on that family member where they had a large amount of money in the bank. Well, that was my dad. This is an absolute true story. And I remember so vividly calling my dad and saying, Dad, I could get a little bit lower rate on a house if I could just have a copy of your bank statement to show my bank so that they know that I have a family member standing behind me. My dad said in almost these exact words, he said, son, if you have to move in with me and you never get a house, you're never going to see my bank statement. Okay, so that was my dad. That was the generation that he was from. He never saw his dad's bank statement because my grandfather never had much. My dad did have a lot, but I never saw his bank statement until he passed away, and my brother and I saw it at the same time after he was gone. That's what we're talking about. You don't have to share all this information, but there needs to be one key place where your family can go. And go back and listen to the podcast here. All of the things that we've mentioned, you may want to include in that place. And you say, where do I put these? Maybe a safety deposit box, maybe a safe at home, but then you got to make sure that somebody knows the combination. If there's a trust issue, there may be problems there. But gather all of these things. And this is by far not necessarily an exhaustive list. You may have other things, and you may be saying right now, you may be saying, hey, there's something else that people need. Hey, right on. I'm not telling you that I'm exhaustive with all the things I'm talking about. But if you have all the things that I've talked about today gathered in one place, so that if you're incapacitated or even if you're gone, and somebody in your family that's got to wrap up your affairs has access to all the things we've talked about today, they're going to be appreciative that you've taken the time to do this. Hey, I hope this was helpful. If you want to see more about how we help our clients, go to our website, www.mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's MOSLEY wealthmanagement.com. And be sure to like, share, subscribe to our channel so you'll get reminders every week when we come out with new programs. And if you want more information about what we've talked about today, go here for a more in-depth video. I'm Tom Mosley, founder of Mosley Wealth Management, where I promise you every single week, if you'll give me 8 to 10 minutes, I'll do my best to increase your financial knowledge and help you ease into retirement.